Hi guys, my name is Tom Shiflet. I am founder, lead programmer, coffee getting intern at Lama Glama Game Company. Lama Glama is essentially a one-man show. My son, who is a freshman in high school, helps out occasionally, but school and soccer and friends and all that stuff have priority at his point in life. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about our upcoming title called Story. Story is a adventure RPG, and what makes Story a little bit different is that we generate stories based on the result of dice rolls and then present those stories through different interpretations. And what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with story dice, then you know that story dice are standard six-sided dice that have pictures on them instead of numbers. And you roll them, and if six people looked at the same roll of dice, you would end up with six different stories, because everybody's going to interpret the dice just a little bit differently. For example, if there's a die that has a sword on one side, then some people might take that very literal as there's a guy with a sword. Some people might view it a little more abstract as this is meaning combat. Some people might interpret it even more abstract as this is a people group that are very warlike or warmongering or whatever. And so you can interpret things in a bunch of different ways. You could also take that same thing and say, combine it with another die that's in there. So let's say there's a key that is also one of the dice. Then you can interpret that and say, hey, the sword is actually the key to unlocking something. And so a bunch of ways that it can be interpreted. And that's what we're doing in Story. We're rolling dice, and then we have an AI system that goes in and interprets the dice in trillions of different ways, and there's a huge amount of variety. And so I haven't done the math on exactly how many different ways there are to interpret, or how many different options there are for stories to be generated, but I'm fairly confident in saying that your story will be your story, that it won't be the same as anybody else out there. Now, all that said, those stories are quick snapshots that are set in this bigger world. And when I say quick, the idea is that you should be able to jump in, play through the main story and maybe a side quest or two in about 10 minutes. We want the stories to be quick. We want it to be straight to action. We don't want a whole lot of just kind of not knowing what to do. Now, in addition to the stories and some of the side quests, there are tons of other things to do. The world is full of places to explore, secrets to be found, treasures to unlock, dungeons to plunder, things like that. But the actual main story is designed to be played through relatively quickly. It's also designed to be played through in a bunch of different ways. That there should be a bunch of different ways that you can accomplish the story. Sometimes you'll have to fight, but a lot of times there's ways to get around fighting if you want to play it in that way. Now, all that talking about the main story, and I'm actually not going to show you a main story today. Story releases on early access on Steam in about 6 weeks on June 1st, and we're still working on the presentation of a lot of that information, and so not quite ready to show that off yet, but I'll show you some of the other things, some of the core RPG elements, as well as some of the side stuff to do. I'm going to load in a character that I've already created. This is a very temporary map. I will warn you right now that we again have lots of temp art. I'm replacing temp art all the time. The level that will ship with the early access release is the June level. Each one of these levels we're going to have 3 in total, but each one of them is 4 kilometers square, and so it's pretty large and plenty of room to explore and everything. And then we have kind of villages and cities and stuff as kind of the main areas where your quests will be centered, and then lots of other space to explore and find some of the hidden stuff and things like that. This is our equip screen. The way that the equip screen works is you have you have 4 weapons that you can equip in going into each story, as well as 4 spells. And so you'll need to take a look at the story itself and like the story description that we're not showing right now, to kind of figure out what spells you want to take, what weapons you want to take. You also have a helmet and armor, temp art, that you can equip. There's different enchants and different buffs that you can get from those items. The axe that I'm using here is an axe of slowness, which means that it'll slow the target for 6 seconds. That slows their movement as well as their attack speed. And so it makes it easier to dodge their attacks when their attacks are coming slower. Once you equip your items, you cannot change them until between stories. And so the equipment setup that you get needs to take into account what the story involves and things like that. Now I'm low level here, and so it is the game is balanced in such a way that it is easier at lower levels. Of course, I spawned in at almost midnight, so I'm going to cheat and turn it into sunrise, just so we have a little light around. This is one of the little villages. This is called Nagreen. Nagreen is not much of a little town. There's an ancient ruin over there, and then there's some mines up in the hills, and that's really about it. But we have one side quest, it looks like. Let me make sure we don't have any other. Okay, yeah, so it looks like we just have one side quest. Generally speaking, you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 5 side quests in whatever area you spawn in. So let's talk to Mr. Drawl here and see what he has for us. And so basically to the north grows a rare species of penny buns, which is a type of mushroom that I need for an important alchemical recipe. I'll reward you with elemental knowledge if you retrieve 3 for me. So we'll go ahead and do that. If we look at our map, we can see that it's just kind of in between the roads here, somewhere out in that vicinity. I actually have a cheat enabled right now that causes, it's not a cheat, I guess it is a cheat. There's a spell that causes quest items to glow so they're easier to find, and I have that turned on all the time. And so, just for testing purposes. So, real quick before we go look for the mushrooms, let me talk about the character screen here. So this character screen, typical RPG type stuff, name, level, experience, the next level. The stats here, these are the core stats: strength, effects, melee damage, as well as your health and health regeneration, which we call HP2. So that's how many health points you regenerate every 2 seconds. Wisdom affects spell damage, as well as your mana pool and your MP2. Subtlety affects ranged damage, as well as the effectiveness of stealth. Now, stealth will not be in most likely for our early access release, but it will come during early access. And then endurance impacts your health, mana, HP2, and MP2. The way that you increase these is essentially every time you level up, you get 3 stat points to spend in any of the categories you want. And then there's also some quest rewards that will reward stat points. For skills, it works a little bit differently. You level these up by using them. And so if I hit an enemy with a one-handed weapon, then I gain a little bit of experience, and then when this little experience bar fills up, I take up a point. Same thing with spells. When I cast an elemental magic spell like a fireball and I hit an enemy, then I'm going to gain a little bit of experience. Talents, every other level, so every even numbered level, you earn a talent point. And I'll have to do another video sometime talking through all the different talents. But, the bottom row, and you have to spend 3 points in each row to unlock the next row. And then sometimes they have prereqs from other areas. But like the thoughtful type, which is where I spent my last talent point, it increases your mana regeneration. It's stackable 3 times. You have Into the Fray, which is if you're sprinting forward when you attack with a melee weapon, then you do double damage. And things like that. One of my favorites, or 2 of my favorites, is Jack of All Trades, which uses your highest weapon skill. So even if I have 10 in two-handed weapons and I equip a two-handed weapon, it's going to use my one-handed weapon skill instead. And then that's Jack of All Trades. Then we have Master of None, which gives a stacking bonus for healing and damage if I cast spells from different schools. So if I cast an elemental spell and then I cast a light magic spell, then I get a 5% bonus. But then the next one after that light spell, I cast another elemental. Now I get a 10% bonus. Then I do a shadow spell. Now it's 15, etc. If you ever cast 2 in a row from the same school, then you lose that bonus. Otherwise, it hangs around for 30 seconds, and it stacks 5 times up to 25% bonus, but then it will refresh the timer if you continue to cast from different schools. So it kind of creates an incentive to use some different spells, and can really be fun in terms of creatively weaving different spells together, so that you're not just sitting there casting Fireball over and over again. So that kind of covers the basics. The way that the damage works, each weapon has a base damage, and then you get a bonus to that based on partially on the stat that controls it and partially based on your skill in that weapon. And so there's some, like the heavy hitter here increases the bonus damage that you get from the strength stat and the associated weapon skill. So anyway, that kind of covers some of the basics of the RPG element. I guess I should point out, here's one of our little penny bun mushrooms. I should point out that spells are learned through quest rewards and treasures in the world. I have only found one, and that is Fireball. And so I am actually casting just a bunch of fireballs over and over again. But that's only because I haven't unlocked or haven't found any others on this character yet. I should have left at night. It actually would have been easier to find the mushrooms at night with the little cheap glow. Okay, there's another one right there. And there's another. Okay. So let's run back, turn this in, see what we get. We also have a portal. That's a test location for the portals. Most of the time the portals are located in more out of the way places. So let me turn this in, I'll explain the portals. Okay, so I have a bug up here that's turning in the item. But then my quest reward is some armor. It's unenchanted. It's really not anything special on this one. So portals, there are, on each story that you play through, you're going to find anywhere from 1 to 3 portals. There's very, very rare cases where you could find more. And these portals lead to portal dungeons. And portal dungeons, some of them are small, one room, generally a bigger side type room. Some of them are huge, the biggest dungeons in the game. Most of them have enemies in them. Most of them will have treasures in them. Some of them will have mini bosses or full bosses that you'll fight. Portal dungeons are usually best done late, like after you do the main story as well as the side quests that you want to do that are in your starting area, because portal dungeons don't always, the exit portal doesn't always take you back to close to where you started, and so generally speaking you're going to want to do your other stuff first. Now I also have some test treasure chests over here. There are treasure chests scattered throughout the world. Some of them are randomly placed. Some of them are always in certain places. Some of them are guaranteed to drop good stuff. Some of them are not guaranteed to drop anything. And so let's take a look and see what I get. So I got a helmet from that one. Another helmet. Some armor. And some more armor. So, like I said, the weapons that you have equipped, that is all that you get. You can't change any of your equipment in the story. And so we will be able to equip those items before our next story. To bring up our little wheel here for which weapon is active, we held down the tab key to change the weapon, and then Q to bring up our spell wheel. I will say for our early access release, it is unlikely that we'll have key remapping, but that will come very soon after. It's something that we are working on in between trying to clean up other stuff. I hate games that don't allow you to remap stuff, and so I hate that it might not be there in this initial early access release, but it will be coming soon. So let's jump in. Actually, before we go in the portal, let's go over here. So the portal will take us to a portal dungeon. This is another dungeon, a world dungeon, that may or may not actually have anything in it. And apparently the door is locked. So that is a generated thing, and the key could be in any number of places. So let's take a look. Now, it's also possible that it is locked because it's connected somehow to the main story. And if that's the case, then we probably will not be able to locate the key. But let's try killing some of these guys. We have a little traffic jam going on over here. We are cleaning up a lot of AI issues. So like I said, it puts that slowness on them when I hit them. And so it makes it a little easier for me to kind of dodge around their attacks. And the game is definitely balanced towards to be easier on the lower end of things. I didn't see anybody drop a key, so we might not be able to get into that dungeon. Oh wait, temple key. Yay! Okay, so let's jump in here. There's actually a piece of temp art in here that I just remembered. Yeah, that guy is temp art. I put him in here for scale as I was kind of building out the level, so just ignore him. Doesn't look like there's anything associated with like main quest going on in here. By the way, as you're running around, if you click and hold your right mouse button, it takes you into kind of a targeting view, and then with the standard third-person view, you can hold down the middle mouse button, your scroll wheel button, to spin your view around to get a good look at yourself. Right. So not really a whole lot to see in that dungeon right now, because generally it would be more connected with a side quest or main quest. So let's jump into this portal dungeon and see where this leads us. This leads us to a place where I am going to get lost. This is one of the biggest dungeons. In fact, currently it is the biggest dungeon in the game. Oh, there's trapped. Alright, I am very likely to get lost here. Just saying. This dungeon is very big, and I'm going to take this portal. This can lead us to a couple of different places, and it brought us here, which isn't bad because there's some treasure here. So, another hat. This is kind of one of our fun Easter egg type hats. And we got nothing from that one. Now, like I said, I'm going to get lost. I'm going to try to get us back. It's worth noting a lot of the spells are guided. So like the fireball spell that I'm casting here, this is a guided spell. And so I don't have to be aimed up directly on it. Oh. There's lots of bad guys. So the quantity, the types of enemies that you'll find will change quite a bit in the portal dungeons. There's a bunch of different types of enemies that can be dropped in. Wow. Alright, where am I? This dungeon also has, we've done first pass, wow. We've done the first pass on kind of laying out the level, but we haven't really detailed it. So that's coming soon. We also still have a lot of work to do on sounds. Like you probably hear, there's kind of some very basic sounds going on. We're still working on getting some of the sounds polished. All right, that is not where I want to go. Okay, this guy dropped some armor. So there are random drops from the enemy mobs and stuff. I think I'm just going in circles. Alright, so this is a good time to point out. So down the bottom left corner we see our health and mana, and then we see the little potion. Each story, you get one potion to use, and that potion will heal you back to full health. So I'm going to go ahead and use mine now. Oh. Okay, so this is back to our exit portal, or the exit portal. So this brings us back out. And like I said earlier, it doesn't necessarily bring you out where you went in. We went in way down here in the south and popped out way up here. And so it's just kind of a exploration type thing, you know. You'll get loot. There's pieces of lore that you'll be able to encounter in the portal dungeons and stuff like that, and some of the most challenging bosses and things like that will be in the portal dungeons. The way we're generating, or the way that we're doing bosses, is bosses are not necessarily, will not always have the same abilities. It has kind of a pool of abilities based off of the type of boss that it is, and so sometimes they'll have one set of abilities and another they'll have another, and so it does create a little more variety, and you don't always know what to expect, and you have to kind of figure out what they're capable of and how to attack that. That big tower thing over there, that is the shrine to Sochi. Sochi is the elemental spirit of light. So in Askaya there are 8 different elemental spirits, and I'm not going to go through and explain all of them because we've written up stuff about the lore, but Sochi is the elemental spirit of light. There is a spirit for earth, for fire, for water, and air, and those are called the neutral spirits. And then there's the spirits that are more, how should we say, more good or bad, I guess. Sochi, the light spirit, is one of the good spirits. And then there's the spirits of shadow and the spirit of death, and so you'll learn about the spirits through playing the game, through having conversations. So like this is, some of the conversation that you can have. That's just to kind of develop some of the story around Askaya and what's going on and things like that. So let's go ahead and save and exit. Eventually, in order to actually recover all of, to keep everything that you earned, keep all the drops that you found, quest rewards, things like that, you'll have to return back to a specific portal. You are teleported in by a group called the Harbingers, and then you have to return to that portal to get out. And if you die, you keep the experience that you gained, but you lose all the items that you picked up and new spells that you learned and things like that. And so there actually won't be a save and exit. It'll be a kind of an emergency exit to abandon the story. But let's jump in, take a look. So the armor that we got, it's not nearly as good as what we had, so I'm going to trash it. So this is the headpiece that we picked up, which is one of the bird type things. It's enchanted with dodging, which gives you a chance to completely dodge incoming attacks. That's the piece that I had. So I seem to be collecting helmets. I'll keep the bird. So anyway, this, like I say, I just want to give just kind of a little glimpse of what story looks like when you're playing it, how it plays, and some background on what it's all about. You can find more information on our Steam page. You can join our Discord channel. I'll put the links to both in the description. You can also visit our website, lggameco.com. Again, link in the description for blog posts that we've done about the lore and background and stuff like that. So love for you to kind of come along for this ride with us. We have a lot of plans. My plan right now is that the early access period will last probably 9 to 12 months. That we will, like I said, we'll be adding in the 2 additional levels at least. We'll be adding in the stealth abilities and all the gameplay that's associated with the stealth. We'll be polishing up the main story generation. We'll be adding additional spells. Right now we have about 24 spells in the game, and the hope is, like, I have planned out to have 50 spells. We will be adding in new weapons, new enemy types, all this kind of stuff. And so updates, minor updates will be coming with on a regular basis, and then major updates will probably come every 2 or 3 months. And by major updates, that's the additional maps, that's big new features, and like we also have planned to have pets, combat pets, and just kind of vanity pets, companion pets. And so that would be considered one of the major updates. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to comment. Contact us on Discord. Discord's probably by far the quickest way to get in touch with us. But love to hear from you and answer any questions that you have. So thank you for watching.